Listen to me. If there was a wise man who would ever think of this, they would say in order to be superior to the man, you've got to be the man. For I am the man himself.
Hello all, and what is going on and how y'all doing this early Sunday evening? This is the Club of the Man 1993, and this is my review of this past Friday night's episode of Friday Night SmackDown. It was the July 7th, 2023 edition, and it's of course a big one because it took place at Madison Square Garden in New York City, which of course is right across the street from the New Yorker Hotel, which I've stayed at the two times that I've been to New York City. And both of them were for WWE events. First was Summerslam 2015. The second was WrestleMania 35. And of course, I'm getting ready in just under a month. I will be heading up to Detroit to go to SummerSlam 2023. Getting compliments to my wife for suggesting this, and I'm looking forward to it. We seem to have gotten our most likely main event for SummerSlam set on this episode, which, with being at the Garden, you would expect it to be a pretty good show. This show's very tough to grade. Because, like usual, the only really good thing about this episode of SmackDown was the Bloodline. The storyline there with the tribal court and whatnot. Yes, the match with Edge and Grayson Waller wasn't too bad, but it's just tough to grade because, again, they had to cut so much time on most of the other parts of the show because of how much time they gave to the Bloodline. They gave probably the first 40 minutes, I would say. And then the last 10 to 15 minutes dedicated to the Bloodline. You could have had this be like a 1 hour episode of NXT and all it was just the Bloodline. And quite frankly, we would have had a perfect show. Because everything else was just rushed. Like, the pacing of this show was very, very off. It really was not that good. Which is why I'm still debating between like a B- and a C+ for this show. I don't know. But also, apparently, we did have Vince McMahon backstage this episode of SmackDown. I'm hearing rumors he was backstage at this episode. Probably because I was at the Garden. And he's got to be at the big episodes because he's got a big, swelled up ego. But let's talk about it. Let's see what we all think by the end of this review. Because I did tape Collision last night. I didn't get to watch it, but I do want to watch it because of Samoa Joe versus CM Punk. And I plan on reviewing it also. And of course, after that review, again, this week I'm going to try to focus on some house projects, but I'll still be doing my reviews. I am trying so hard to get that last graphic ready, and hopefully sometime this coming week, you will see the worst matches of all time 2023 edition as well. But let's, of course, do SmackDown, keep the pace going, and we'll go from there. So, let's talk about, of course, the longest part of this show. Which, of course, was the opening to SmackDown. Which was the Tribal Court, as they called it. This, of course, is the first episode of SmackDown since Jey Uso pinned Roman Reigns at Money in the Bank. So, the show opened up with the Usos coming out. Jimmy talks about how they said Roman can't be beat. But guess what? He got beat 1, 2, 3. Immediately out comes Paul Heyman with Solo Sikoa. He does his usual shtick, and he says he serves as defensive counsel in this tribal court. He starts to offer defense. What? But the Usos just cut out and tell him to shut up. And then Paul Heyman says there's only one man in WWE that can get him to stop talking. But then Solo grabs his microphone, tosses it to the side, and waits for Roman Reigns to come out. Which this alone, like this and like the recap of the Bloodline Civil War, took up probably the first 10 minutes of the show. So we already have a commercial break. Roman then comes in, and he gets this hostile, "You got pinned" chants and "F you Roman" chants. Of course, it caused, a few things not be heard as they had to censor the chants. But Roman demands the Garden to acknowledge him and says, "Yeah, I got pinned, but I'm still the tribal chief. And neither of the Usos are the tribal chief." He's having trouble understanding why, though, he's here. He didn't call for this tribal court. So this is a waste of time, and it's not legit. He asks who has the authority to put him on trial. But the Usos aren't playing around, and they're not going to be manipulated like every other time. And they have video packages of Roman's wrongs to play. And they basically played all the times Roman had just abused, manipulated everyone in the bloodline, including Paul Heyman. And once again, I keep saying this, and I got to do that short. I got to make that short, explaining why I think, because, spoiler alert, although they basically made the match official, I hate for this whole storyline to end this way. I really don't think Jey Uso is going to be the one to take the belt off Roman. Even though there was some type of tease with Solo in this show, I'm continually going to say this because the ending to the WrestleMania match told the true ending to this story. And again, that is the fact that Roman Reigns will continue to be like this until you split him and Paul Heyman up. As I keep saying, Roman Reigns is Voldemort. Paul Heyman's his Nagini. Paul Heyman is Roman Reigns' Nagini. He is the one that, although, again, this all started when he first feuded with Jey. That was his first feud when he won the title. Roman Reigns turned into this power-hungry manipulator whenever he first teamed with Paul Heyman. So he is the true mastermind behind the tribal chief. Adding Jey, Jimmy, Solo, Sammy was just building up the army. And now that everybody is leaving the bloodline, so does Paul Heyman. But anyways, they play this video package of Roman's wrongdoings. And Roman watches it and seemed like very confused. And he's just like, I didn't want to be this guy. I was forced to be this guy. I didn't want to lower myself to what I've done. But I've done it for Jey. I've done it for Jimmy. I've done it for all the people in the crowd. And heck, he was main eventing WrestleMania before the bloodline. And he bent his moral compass for the family to represent him. And this is the thanks he gets? They compiled footage of his worst moments to embarrass him? His daughter's in the back looking at him and not understanding who he is, and it's because of them. He takes the weight of the world and he lifts them all up. He has 5 kids, which, dang, that's a lot. Do they really think he needed to take on theirs too? He doesn't need any of this. He doesn't need money or power. And right about now, Umbrella Service sounds really nice to him. He don't want it. He don't need it. He's done. So at first we're like, is this Roman like admitting defeat? Is this him like finally handing over, and dropping himself from being the tribal chief? Because he then takes off of his lei and basically motions for Jay. Shaking and nearly crying, he put the lei around Jay's shoulders. He even took off his Universal Championship and tossed it aside. And he actually starts crying, gets all emotional, and he kneels down in front of Jay. And basically is getting ready to acknowledge Jay as his tribal chief. The crowd's going nuts. Again, the acting, the cinema for this is just unreal. Because you're waiting for that moment, like, is Roman actually giving this all up, or is this all a ruse? And then, of course, the master manipulator strikes again. Because just when Jay is starting to show a little bit of compassion and consoles him, BAM! He then strikes Jay right where Jay struck him on Saturday. Right, giving him a low blow. And then Jimmy just tees off on Roman until, of course, Solo. And then it was an all-out, long, I'd say a good 10-minute brawl. Because first we have Jay laying out Jimmy with a Samoan spike. But then, of course, it gets interesting because then while Roman's sitting there, Solo is briefly staring down the lei. And we're like, is Solo going... it shows that this conflicting moment. Like, are the cracks formed with Roman and Solo? And then, of course, Solo goes for a lei, but then Roman approaches him and holds his hand out. And then Solo then hesitates for a long moment. And then Jay takes them out, but then Solo takes him out with a spinning Solo. And then Roman hits a Superman punch and goes to the floor. And then, of course, they did this thing where they held Jay hostage in the ropes. And then basically they just beat the crap out of Jimmy up right in front of Jay. And then they basically smashed him with steel steps. They hammered his face in with the title belt over and over again. But then Jay did get free and he attacks, but he was then overwhelmed and thrown into the table. Roman tells Solo to finish him. Roman buries Jay in the chairs. And then everyone's out trying to stop him, but they can't change anything. Because Solo Sikoa swung and missed with his splash through the announce table at Money to Bank. He did not miss this time, though, as they splashed Jimmy through the announce table. And then they showed Jimmy being stretchered out in an ambulance, and then Jay and the LWO, I guess, were there to help him out. But that wasn't all we saw of Jay. But yeah, that all together, it was long. It was so worth the time. I mean, again, I hate saying this because everything else got cut and suffered from this, but that was suspenseful. That was cinematic. Did you Roman Reigns was caught off guard? Did anybody actually believe that he was going to give all this up? He kind of made it believable for a second. Which, of course, I probably would have hated having his reign end that way. Or it could have been him go away and say, I never technically lost. And basically, well, again, that could have been... Because here's the thing. I still do not believe 100% that Jay is going to be the one to dethrone Roman. They're probably going to drag it out till WrestleMania. I don't think that's going to work. Because they're going to do Roman and Cody again. Because they're both on separate brands. But they have to do it at WrestleMania. They should have done it at SummerSlam. But they still carrying on this pointless feud with Roman and Brock. To, once again, it makes no sense because they still have not explained why the fuck Brock Lesnar is beating the hell out of Cody Rhodes. There's been so many fantasy ideas pitched out there by so many people, which are all great ideas. But yet, it's been, how many months since WrestleMania? May, June, July. 3 months. It'll be 4 months come SummerSlam, and we still do not have an explanation as to why Brock Lesnar is beating the shit out of Cody Rhodes for like months. So, yeah, I mean, yeah, it would be cool to see Jay do it. I just don't think Jay's going to do it. As I keep saying, the true person that Roman Reigns has to be broken from is his wise man, Paul Heyman. Again, he is the one that started Roman with this new power-hungry mindset. I gotta make that short. Paul Heyman is the true problem here. They told that story at WrestleMania whenever Cody had taken care of the Usos. He had taken care of Solo Sikoa. Solo only got to Cody at WrestleMania because of who caused the distraction? Paul Heyman. So Paul Heyman's the one that has to be the last person to be separated from Roman Reigns before Roman finally drops his gold belt. But the rest of the show, again, was just very rushed. First, we had Austin Theory versus Sheamus. The ending was actually quite good because I did like how they did tease and they did give me that split moment where I did believe Sheamus could dethrone Austin Theory. But of course, the "Yes, boys!" pretty deadly come out and cause havoc. And same with the Brawling Brutes. I kind of was still hoping this could have been maybe when they pulled the trigger and turned Pete Dunne, Butch, but made him Pete Dunne again on the Brawling Brutes, but it didn't happen. Austin Theory, of course, just win after a bunch of distractions with the handful of tights, and he retains the U.S. title. I don't know if they're still going to continue this in the SummerSlam, or if people are also saying they should do Austin Theory versus LA Knight, which also he was absent on that show, which is cardinal sin because of how freaking over he was in London. But of course, he's too old. But wait, Damian Priest has Money in the Bank, and he's 3 months older than LA Knight. Vince probably loves Damian Priest, which I love Damian Priest, but probably only push Priest because Priest is tall. Priest is big. LA Knight's not. Up my rear, Vince. Up my rear. And then we have another Grayson Waller effect, which this show to me really showed that Grayson Waller is definitely a Vince McMahon favorite. Want to know why? It's not just, I'll get to it in a second, the reason why, but it's definitely not just because he has a talk show that is so forced. And I'm sorry, again, I didn't watch NXT. Are those tweets they show at the bottom, on like a bottom line, actually real? Because they look so made up. They look so made up and fake. It's just not believable that the Grayson Waller effect is this hot of a talk show. Anyways, though, he has Edge on the show. Now, this is the first time we've seen Edge, I think, since he wrestled in one of the triple threats for the World Heavyweight title tournament. And Grayson basically tries to, get Edge to admit that he's getting ready to retire, which believably I thought he was. Because I thought rumors had it he was going to retire after the August 18th episode of August 18th episode of SmackDown, because that's going to be in Toronto, and he keeps saying he wants to retire in Toronto. So he's like, no, I'm not done, and then he says he sets up for a match later on the show against Grayson Waller, which is Grayson Waller's first main roster match. And apparently he's been hurt, which is why he hasn't wrestled yet. We'll get to that match, of course, in a second. AJ Styles took on Karrion Kross. First off, Karrion Kross not only got his entrance cut off for the commercial, apparently he got his entrance cut off in the ring also, which is sad. And in the match that they actually built to for a couple weeks went like 3 minutes. And Karrion Kross just loses again. He's got no direction either, unfortunately. Oh yeah, and then we have this segment with Asuka, who comes out and says nobody's ready for Asuka. Bianca comes out and they start brawling. Charlotte comes down and they join in the brawl too. But then out of nowhere, Io Sky came in. And okay, at first, that's not... No, I wasn't going to hate on that. That tease cash in. Thought maybe she would have cashed in with them being in the garden. The crowd was hot for it. But here's what made no sense. And screw WWE for saying they tried to fix it. But remember how they canceled the match with Bayley and Shotzi? And then they did a week later. But they had Io help Bayley, even though she basically got that match made because she wanted to teach Bayley a lesson. And how that didn't make sense. Well, how does this make sense? At Money in the Bank, Io handcuffed Becky Lynch and Bayley together on the ladder to win the Money in the Bank briefcase, right? Right? Then why the heck did Bayley come out with Io on this show? The first show, right after she basically turned her back on her completely and Money in the Bank. How on earth did she... What makes sense to have Bayley... I can't even speak, this makes no sense. They had Bayley help Io try to cash in. I mean, unless if it was going to be that they're going to have Bayley... It looked like she was about to help Io and then screw her over or something. I don't know. But it made no sense for Bayley to be there trying to help Io cash in. Like, did they forget the whole story here? I'm sure they are. And then, of course, they didn't cash in because I think they both got knocked out of the ring and regrouped. So that's basically setting up the triple threat at SummerSlam between Asuka, Charlotte, and Bianca. And Charlotte's probably going to win. She'll probably win at SummerSlam. I'm sorry. Once again, Asuka, who, of course, is, to me, doesn't really have a different character. She's just a heel doing the same thing she was as a babyface champion before. Because if she was under Triple H, she'd be being booked like a badass. But instead, she's still booked like the... She's just a transitional champion. She's just a transitional champion. That's all she is. That's all she's been since she won the title when was it again she won the title? Night of Champions? I believe it was Night of Champions she won it. Yeah, that's all she's been. That's it. Again, just like how Braun Strowman was. WWE does not put the belt on Asuka when they want her to have the belt. They put the belt on her when they need her to have the belt. Like, again, if that tweet she posted after WrestleMania was legitimately her frustrations, I don't blame her. I don't freaking blame her. So, we had that. Then we had Edge versus Grayson Waller. And they gave it time. It is a good match. Again, Grayson Waller has no appealing character to me whatsoever. But he is great in the ring. I'll give him that. But this is how you know Grayson Waller is a Vince McMahon guy. A guy that Vince McMahon wants to see pushed. Although, of course, he makes no sense. Edge won with a spear after he countered Waller's Rolling Thunder finisher, whatever he calls it. Because afterwards, Edge gets a microphone and he says, "Hey Waller, you swam." Basically putting over Grayson Waller. How often does that actually happen? When you have a babyface give a heel a rub like that? Yeah, again, I'm pretty sure, again, that was a Vince idea. Vince was backstage. Vince McMahon is in love with Grayson Waller. He was one of Waller's top stars on NXT 2.0 when he was running NXT with Bruce Pritchard. So, I guess that's why I'm also like sour on Grayson Waller, because I know he's only here because Vince McMahon loves him. Like, they're not allowing us to be, like, I just had that, like, Vince McMahon like puppet on him. And then if they would take it off and let Grayson Waller just be him, maybe I would get behind him. But the fact I know it, he's only there because Vince McMahon drools over him or whatnot. I can't get behind him. I see something like this, I'm like, they only did, and I can't help it because, again, I don't trust the senile old man. I don't trust him. He doesn't create stars. He doesn't make anybody look appealing. As I keep saying, this is his own personal video game, and it's just him, on custom mode, whatever you want to call it. But then the show ended because Roman was then advised, and we were also advised during the main event match, that Jey Uso was back. And then basically Jey came out through the crowd, Roman met him in the ring, and first Jey came out, but Roman sent Solo after him. But Jey just beat the ever-living piss out of Solo. Because when he got Solo down, then he goes after Roman. Roman escapes when Jey grabs a chair, and then Jey instead just wallops the hell out of Solo Sikoa. But Roman, again, here's another hint about Solo maybe splitting soon. Roman didn't help Solo. Roman let fed Solo, went running off. You think Solo is not gonna be too happy about that? He may be, of course, because Bayley was okay with Io handcuffing her hand to a ladder, because that made no sense. But yeah, I know, I'm very, very bitter. But afterwards, after he beat down Solo, Jey basically challenged Roman 101, and he basically tells Roman, first Roman left his title in the ring, and then Roman's yelling at Jey to put the title down. But Jey says, "You're the tribal chief? Well, you're looking at the judge, the jury, and the executioner right now. Now he has to get Roman. And this is trial by combat now. He'll give a damn about brothers or wise men. He just wants Roman one-on-one so he can whoop his ass one more time." So that's basically a sign that match is going to, this match is going to be official, basically, for SummerSlam. And the most of the main event. Roman Reigns versus Jey Uso one more time. And again, I still think Roman will retain. I don't see Jey winning the title, because if he wins the title, then what's he going to do with it? And he probably wouldn't be champ for too long. But that's SmackDown. I'm still in between grades. I really don't know what to do, because again, you know what? No, C+. Because one, they should be giving AJ Styles and Karrion Kross 3 minutes of a match. Stuff with Grayson and Edge was okay. I'll give it a B- because the Bloodline stuff took up that much time and it was that good. So a B-, but a really, really low B- for SmackDown. That's my thoughts, guys, on SmackDown. I'm going to check out now and go watch Collision. What are your guys' thoughts on this week's episode of SmackDown? Leave your thoughts down in the comments section below. And be sure as always to slap a like on the video, subscribe for more content on my channel, follow me on Twitter at TheClubWithTheMan93, also follow me on TikTok and Instagram at TheClubWithTheMan1993, and until then guys, I'm checking out, I'll catch you guys all later. Have a great rest of your night, and do not forget, in order to be superior to the man, you've got to be the man, and for I am the man himself.